We begin with breaking news coming out of Ottawa today. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau recommending the appointment of 7 new senators. Now, these are the first appointments to the upper chamber in 3 years. Trudeau announcing that he intends to name Peter Harder as government representative in the Senate. Harder was the head of Trudeau's transition team. Among the other appointees, Chantal Petitclerc, a champion Paralympic wheelchair racer, included our retired Manitoba judge, Murray Sinclair, Radna Omvidar, an expert on migration and diversity, and Andre Pratt, an award-winning editorial writer from Quebec. The other two on this list, Raymond Gagné, a former president of the University of St. Boniface, and Francis Larkin, a minister or former in the Ontario NDP government. And this morning, Chantal Petitclerc confirmed her recommended appointment. Here's what she tweeted. "There we go, feeling humbled." All right, let's get to CTV's Mercedes Stevenson. She has been following, confirming all the details for us this morning. Mercedes, these appointments are meant to be merit-based, non-partisan. Do you think it meets that criteria?
Well, it'll be very interesting to see if that's particularly the case, especially when you're talking about Mr. Harder, who was a member of Justin Trudeau's transition team. But I'll say this, a lot of Conservatives were surprised when Mr. Harder went to Mr. Trudeau's transition team because they thought that he was a Conservative. So he may actually be one of these people who can work with both sides of the spectrum. That's certainly the goal here, Morella, is to try to pick eminent Canadians, not to use the Senate to reward essentially party bag people who've raised a lot of money or worked in elections, but to try to choose those who they think would bring the best possible sober second thought to the Senate, which is what it's supposed to be about, and to try to get rid of some of the partisanship that happens in the Senate. Right now, the Tories have a significant majority there, but there's a number of empty seats that Stephen Harper didn't want to fill because, as you can imagine, in the depths of the Senate scandal, it wouldn't exactly have been great PR to start appointing senators, and frankly, a lot of Canadians weren't interested who might be qualified in going to the Senate at this time. So now we have a different government, a new government. They have different criteria for the Senate without constitutional change. Justin Trudeau has promised to refresh the Senate, give it a new face. So we'll see if these senators meet the criteria to do that. Certainly some very eminent Canadians selected today. And Morella, the other thing to point out about this is that it's regional, because there are certain regions that were particularly depleted in the Senate. And among them, of course, Manitoba, Quebec, and Ontario. That is where these senators are representing today. And when you break it down, it's Monsieur Gagné and Justice Murray Sinclair from Manitoba, Harder, Lankin, and Omvidar from Ontario, and then Petitclerc and Pratt representing Quebec.
All right. I know this came as a paper news release, but the Prime Minister is quoted in it. What did he have to say?
He is indeed, and that, by the way, that's the standard way they release things, Morella. Usually when it's a Senate appointment, it comes out over paper and we learn about it when it comes into our email boxes. So the Prime Minister speaking today on this via the release, this is what he had to say. Obviously, he's pleased with these choices. They've been looking carefully at them. And in it, you can see that quote saying that they're taking further steps to follow through with their commitment to reform the Senate, restore public trust, and bring an end to that partisanship. So those are big priorities for this government and for this Prime Minister. And you heard that being hinted at as well when the Prime Minister was in New York and he was asked about the news that the majority of the senators who the RCMP had been looking into had received letters informing them that they were essentially cleared. And he said that it was time to move forward. He praised the Senate. Those were all signals that we might be expecting some Senate appointments soon. And of course, that's exactly what has happened on this Friday morning.
All right, Mercedes, thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.